everyone. Welcome to Behind the Message. I'm Garrett. This is Tammy. And Tammy just delivered for us week 3 in the series, Making Room for Advent. So we're just going to talk about it a little bit more. So right off the bat, I have a question for you. Why Magic Johnson?
Well, I knew I was dating myself a little bit by that, but I don't know. I mean, I when I was growing up, there wasn't a women's professional league, so I watched the NBA and, I watched Michael Jordan, I watched Magic Johnson, but this is going to get me in trouble with all of the Chicago people. What I like about Magic Johnson is it seemed that he cared as much about his, assisting his teammates to win than he did in just being the guy himself. And so he was my favorite.
Okay. Maybe inherent in being a point guard, but I just was wondering, did you grow up in LA because...
No. But I grew up during the era when the Celtic-Lakers rivalry was at its, so pretty much every finals was them, so you had to pick a side.
Fair enough. Yeah. This is Chicago, but I feel like MJ would have a respect for Magic Johnson, so...
As he should.
Yeah, as he should. Good. Well, going into the message, you talked in the message about how someone spoke a word to you about how God loves the sound of your voice. Could you talk a little bit more about what sort of an impact that had on you and how that fueled your vision moving forward?
Yeah, I think, as we talked about, when that guy who spoke those, I see him playing that Elizabeth role in my life at that moment. Even though I have no idea who it was, didn't see him before, haven't seen him since. When someone speaks that word that touches something that's going on deep inside of us, I think what it does is it just gives us this sense that God sees me. It's just a reminder that God sees me. He knows the insecurities and the doubts and the questions that I struggle with. And so, out of the blue, he does this crazy thing for somebody that I don't know, will never probably see again, and gives me a word. And to me, that I think that was the biggest thing is I just walked away going, okay, God sees me. And he wanted me to have this affirmation that what I'm stepping into is really what he wants me to be doing. And so I just hold on to those type of moments when they happen in life, and because they give you that confidence that you are walking where God wants you to walk. Has that ever happened to you?
It has, yeah. And I think similar to Mary, there's this moment of doubt and fear that you can have, but then when someone speaks exactly what you want deep down to believe, it gives you confidence to move through what can be barriers or what can, fear can hold you back from what it is that you really feel like God might be calling you to do.
Yeah, and when I've had the opportunity to play that Elizabeth role in someone else's life, you realize too, I mean, that is a joy to get to be someone that sparks or confirms or affirms something in someone else's life. And it just those times when that happens, it makes me want to be someone who lives more open to the Spirit all the time, so that when you receive kind of these nudges or these thoughts or these promptings, that you can play that role in someone else's life.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so Elizabeth, she plays a really critical role in the story. And there's something powerful about how Elizabeth responds in relation to her circumstances, Elizabeth's. So what do you think enables Elizabeth to respond the way that she does? And what are some things maybe that we could learn from that in our today context?
Well, I really see, and I think Betty Dickinson's devotional on this helped bring this out really well to me, that Elizabeth has this grounding, has this confidence in who she is and the role that she is playing in the story of what God is doing, that she doesn't feel threatened by Mary and by, what Mary does. And part of me wonders, maybe this is one of those questions we can ask when we see God face to face, but part of me wonders if part of the reason why Elizabeth had to wait so long was because she needed to have the maturity that comes with age and experience to not have any ounce of her being want to compete with Mary.
Yeah.
But to be someone who wanted to both rejoice in what God has called her to do and live out her purpose, not only in being a mother, but also in raising the person who was going to, John the Baptist, who was going to prepare the way for Jesus, but also just because she was farther along in years and had that settled sense of who she was, that she could embrace and celebrate Mary, even though Mary's role in the story would actually become more known and more celebrated than her own. And so I don't know, that might have been part of the reason why her wait was so long, is what God had to do in her to prepare her for the role she was going to play.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I experience a lot of the opposite of what enabled Elizabeth to do what she did, where I'm caught up in comparison to other people. But when you do feel that freedom, which a lot of times can come the further that you go in life, a freedom to just see what God is doing in someone else and speak that, that enables something to happen that is beyond both of you, which I thought was a really cool part of the story.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned Betty Dickinson, and a lot of the work that she's done has shaped the content of this series. So I was wondering if you had some thoughts on her perspective on the Advent story and even her artistic creativity and how that gives further meaning to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I actually met Betty a year ago at a retreat we were both at in Utah, and it's one of those moments that I actually feel like was divinely orchestrated for us to connect. Even some of the things that I was going through at that time in my life, God used her as an Elizabeth to speak some things into me in that moment. But also then when I learned like what she did and that she had this book coming out, it just developed into this, I helped to review her manuscript and got to write an endorsement for the book, and then just started to have this vision for how this could be used in our Christmas series. And one of the things that, like, I've read different Advent books and different devotionals over the years. I think one of the things that, first of all, to hear the story from a woman's point of view, I think is she brings out some things that maybe nothing else that I've read before has noticed. But also, we haven't really had time to tell this part of her story. Actually, when she started on the first painting, and the first painting she did was the angel, I think it was the angel coming to Mary, and she was thinking about this moment and Mary finding out she was pregnant. All of a sudden she had this thought, and she thought, I wonder if I'm pregnant. And she went and took a pregnancy test, and she was.
No way.
And so like for her, like as she was creating the paintings and as she was writing these reflections, she was also experiencing them as someone who was going through what Mary was going through. And so I think she probably just has a perspective based on that informed some of what she did in the book that is unique. And I think it's given us some different ways to talk about these characters. Every year you want to tell this story, but it's like the same story. And I just feel like there's been some fresh things in her perspective that have made the story come to life in a new way.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So one of the main ideas in the message is that we need to be living in community in order to have people encourage us, speak this truth to us so that we can live out what God is calling us to do.
Yes.
So what are some practical examples that you've seen of this community taking place? And what would you say is the difference between shallow, kind of surface level community and a deeper community where this life change does happen?
Well, I think, and we all need probably both in our lives. I mean, I think it's okay to have some people that we more just, rub shoulders with in the lobby and maybe even sometimes a group of friends that we just do fun things with. But there is a difference between that and people that we really sit down and have heart level conversations.
Right.
And that's part of the reason we did the reflection in the message is because, first of all, like, we need to get in touch with what's going on inside of us. And then we have to have the courage to talk about it with each other. And I think that can happen. I think that can happen well in small groups. I think, and also maybe just even when you look at your relational network, there's probably one or two or maybe three people that that you have a connection with that goes beyond just we're hanging out and watching the game. And I mean, that's true for me. And I think most of these Mary and Elizabeth type encounters, these Elizabeth conversations happen in the context with, like, most often with those people. I mean, it can happen with the college guy sitting next to me at a conference that I didn't know. But most of these conversations for me have come in those type of relationships. And, even within this past year, as I was, trying to figure out some next steps and what should I be, focusing on right now, one of my Elizabeth type people in my life kind of said to me, well, what really brings you to life? And I named 2 things, and she's like, you're right, and there's one more. And I was like, there is? Okay, what is it? And she was able to speak that to me, and I was like, you know what, you're right. You're right, that is one more. And so I need to figure out how to create the space for these 3 things, because that's what I'm called to do.
Yep.
And so I think in the context of our small groups, and then but sometimes it's not even a group thing. There's the 1 or 2 or 3 people that you go out to coffee with and have that deeper conversation.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've definitely experienced that
Yeah,
in my
have
life.
you? Yeah.
And excuse me, there's you kind of just know who those people are that see you in that way. So thank you for taking a deeper dive and sharing some more of your thoughts on the message this week. Really appreciate it.
And good job. This is your first time doing this.
It is my first time.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So thank you for joining us for Behind the Message. If you would like to find out any more information or stay up to date on things going on at Community, you can go to communitychristian.info, and we will see you right back here next week for week 4 of the series, Making Room for Advent. Might have to clear my throat at some point.
Oh, we don't allow throat clearing.
Well, I just...
Secret recipe.
I don't know if you just want to roll through that.
We'll just have to cut every time you have to clear your throat. Let's have a code word. So if you're about to clear your throat, just say, Bosco. Okay? Or, it's a little side reference. I'm sorry. No, I don't need to make light if you're clearing your throat. I'm sorry. Yes, you can clear your throat. It's okay.
Okay.